אנו מכריזים בזאת For those new to the show, I'm Barry Shaw, and this is The View from Israel. And today I'm asking the question, what is the Philos Project? What is it? What does it represent? And why is it beneficial to Israel? And so sit back as I introduce my guest, Luke Moon. Luke, welcome to The View from Israel.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You are the Deputy Director of the Philos Project, so nobody better to answer my question. What's the Philos Project? What does it do? How did it begin? What's its aim?
Yeah, Philos Project is a community of Christians who raise awareness about persecuted Christians in the Middle East and encourage Christian support for Israel and the Jewish people. Really, we were started back in 2014. The way I frame it, imagine 100 million Christians in America, 20 million love Israel regardless, 20 million hate Israel regardless, and this group in the middle, unengaged or underengaged on Israel. And we found that the makeup of that group was the younger you were, the less white you are, and the more you run stuff within the Christian space, the less likely you are to support Israel. And so we really trying to fill those gaps. And so we have started programming to engage those different communities. We started a program called Passages, which is like a Christian birthright, which brings Christian college students to Israel. We started a Hispanic Affairs program to engage the Hispanic community. Also a African American Affairs program to engage the African American community. And then we also ran and continue to run what we call VIP trips. So trips to Israel for influencers and people who run stuff within the Christian space in America. And so for basically the last 8.5 years, we've been just plugging away at that.
Your website, the website of Philos Project, says, quote, it promotes a positive Christian engagement in the Near East by creating leaders, building community, and taking action in the spirit of the Hebraic tradition. Explain what that really stands for.
Well, our focus is really connecting Christians in America with what is going on in the Near East. I mean, our faith as Christians, our faith is connected to the land. We use Near East often as opposed to the Middle East. There's a famous statesman named Charles Malik, and he wrote a paper back in the 50s where he referred to the Near East as that place. If you draw a 900-mile radius outside from Jerusalem at the center, most of the lands of the Bible take place in that 900-mile radius. And so we really think that the next generation of Christian leaders needs to understand their connection to the land and the people of Israel. And I think it's we in the United States, at least, there's a phrase that a public theologian calls we're a cut flower generation, which means that we don't have the roots that we once had. We don't have the roots of understanding that our Western civilization is rooted in the Hebrew Bible, the Hebrew people, and the land of Israel.
The website quotation that I mentioned actually doesn't specifically mention Israel, which seems to indicate to me that your reach is broader than being an affirmative Christian Zionist NGO. Is that correct? How do you balance the two?
Well, one of the things that was very important from us from the very beginning was to put Israel in the region in which it is, right? So you've often found that people would treat Israel as if it was in, let's say the gated community of Western Europe, as opposed to the troubled neighborhood of the Middle East, right? And so by talking more broadly about the region as a whole, we found that we could bring other people that would typically be turned off perhaps by, they see Israel as, like overly complicated theologically or politically or, in international affairs or whatever. And we really wanted to kind of position the conversation in the region in which it's found.
Okay. The fear in Israel could be that Philos might be in a missionary organization. So how do you assure Israelis that Philos is not a proselyting group seeking to convert Israeli Jews?
Well, Philos means friend in Greek. And from the beginning, our methodology was, listen, there are Christians who do proselytization. They preach the gospel. That is something that all Christians are commanded to do. But one of the things that we wanted to start with, listen, let's just be friends. That when you're friends with somebody, there isn't an ulterior motive to actual friendship, right? And so we're not looking for, to preach the gospel or anything. We are just trying to be good friends. And for the last 2,000 years, there's been a lot of enmity between Christians and Jews. And I think over the last 75, that has softened. And I think if we don't continue to build upon the good will that has been generated over the last, like I said, 75 years, then I fear we'll go back to, the old ways. And statistically speaking, that's in real danger right
now. One of the things that I had a little bit of trouble with, which maybe I misunderstood it, I'd like you to explain it. As part of the sort of mission statement that I saw on your website, it says, and if I correct you rightly, that at the end it says that Israel is a state and should be held to the same standard as any other state. That was the final sentence, if you like, in part of the statement on the website. The trouble I have, Luke, is this, that I have to find this too broad a statement, because if you're asking that Israel be kept to the same standards as Syria, Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, Iraq, Iran, I would claim that Israel is in fact is not the same standard, but a considerably higher standard than some of these other nations in the Middle East.
Well, yes, but I think that framing is less meant to kind of lower the standard of Israel, but actually, the people who are, let's call them anti-Zionists, anti-Israel people around the world, want to hold Israel to a different standard than anybody else. Take the apartheid slander that was put forth by Amnesty International, right? They want to. Israel is the only country in the world that qualifies as being an apartheid state according to Amnesty International. No other country is behaving as badly as Israel. And the fact that places like the United Nations Human Rights Council has one whole motion dedicated to attacking Israel is a problem, right? So when we say it should be held to the same standard as every other country, we're talking about that standard, right? Not singling out Israel as the pariah of the world, which is what the anti-Zionists want.
The other thing I want you to explain to me, Luke, if you would, that there's another statement in your on your website that said both the Jewish state and the Palestinian state should be democratic and pluralistic. I assume by that you assume already that Israel is a democratic and pluralistic state, and any potential Palestinian state should be, but it certainly isn't today. Before I hand it over to you, one of the points I would make is the last time that Palestine or a so-called Palestinian national movement tried to be democratic, certainly not pluralistic, but democratic, was about 15, 16 years ago, was the last time they held a national election, and it was won by Hamas. The feeling here in Israel, and I have to admit, by the Palestinian Authority as well, if they had any national election this year, it would again be won by Hamas, so there would be no chance at all of this Palestinian state being in any way democratic and certainly not pluralistic.
Right. I would say that, the goal of, I think, any advocacy on the basis of, democracy and justice and human rights needs to uh, encourage those in totality. I mean, I remember, when I first started at the Philos project, I met with my pastor, and he said, "What do you do?" And I said, "Well, I raise awareness about persecuted Christians and encourage Christian support for Israel and the Jewish people." And he said, "Well, what about the Palestinians?" I said, "What about the Palestinians? Are you aware it's illegal to convert from Islam to Christianity in the Palestinian territories? If you write a Facebook post against the president, you can go to jail." And all the leaders of the country have said a future Palestinian state will be free of Jews, which is what the Nazis advocated for. And so, if I'm going to advocate for the Palestinians, it's going to be on the basis of actual human rights and justice. And that you often, I mean, he didn't have really a good response to that. But I think when we're saying that we want to see a pluralistic Palestinian state based on democracy, I think that should be the advocate. That
What
should
happened there?
be something everybody should advocate for. So I don't think that that's strange. Whether or not it will be achieved anytime soon, that's another question.
Right. Lou, tell me, are you expressing here, does the Philos Project express issues that come from your faith, from the Bible and everything, and apply it into a contemporary work? Or is it what I would call a more secular Christianity?
Well, I think our principles are rooted in the Bible. I think Western civilization's principles are rooted in the Bible, and so I mean I'm advocating. I think when I'm advocating for self-determination for the Palestinian people, it's you know there's a verse in the New Testament where it says, "Be holy as I am holy." Is what God says. Be holy as I am holy. I think it's in the New Testament, and it's the part of that phrase is like you're going for a goal. There's a lofty goal. I mean, heck, if you read Plato's Republic, I mean, Plato's Republic is trying to better understand what is justice, right? Those types of writings that we find in both the Old and New Testament are are aspirational. Like, how should things be better? How should humans flourish? And I think humans flourish when they follow the blueprint that's found in Scripture. And the degree to which anybody is not, then things are not going to go well for them. You read in the Torah where the the people of Israel were put on two mountains, and there was a like, if you do this, it will go well for you. If you do this, it will go bad for you. And I think the blueprint of Scripture is pretty clear that you follow God's guidance and things will go well.
If I go back to, for instance, Genesis 12 and that the quotation that I will bless those that bless you and I will curse those that curse you seems to be having some effect since Israel was created, is that we see what has been happening with those who come to attack us, or the anti-Semites, the people who want to destroy Israel, etc. Do you see that relevance today playing out?
Well, I would say, in my personal life, I have seen that. I have seen that, when I've begun to, I didn't think that I would be doing what I'm doing now. I went to Israel for the first time 11 years ago this month. And before then, I was not that involved. I was not that interested. And I don't know, Israel got under my skin somehow, right? And since I've been advocating for Israel and the Jewish people, I have found really significant personal blessing. I would say that as nations begin to turn on Israel, there's a long history of empires who have crashed themselves upon the shoals of Jerusalem, if you will, and that aren't around anymore, right? And I think that as nations increasingly are antagonistic towards Israel, then obviously it shows a deeper sickness within the nation, right? I think it's something that comes from their rejection not only of the the Jewish people, Israel specifically, but the principles that are found in the Jewish text, the Bible.
Let me tell you also where I see it played out. And I admit one of the reasons I came across Philos because in the last few months I've been trying to build up a coalition and affiliation, if you like, between Jewish organizations and Christians organizations to come together on the basis that not just simply because of Israel, but I find in a lot of places, including in your country over there, the United States, traditional Judeo-Christian values are very much under attack. And I think there is more strength in working together than working separately. But where this works out in the Middle East, and I've quoted this in other shows, I'll give you another expression. First, they come for the Saturday people, and then they come for the Sunday people. And we see this played out in the Middle East and even North Africa, where, for instance, they've attacked and denuded themselves of Jews that used to be major parts of civilizations in the past, who have driven out. Most of them have come, for instance, to Israel to escape the persecution. And today, when I look at the persecution that's going on in a lot of Middle Eastern and African countries, it's now against Christians themselves physically, also churches and things like that. Couldn't be worked out even more significantly than in the once Christian town of Bethlehem, where under Israel, it was a prosperous middle class, 65% majority Christians in Bethlehem. And since Israel was obliged to hand over Bethlehem to Yasser Arafat and the Palestinian authorities in the search for peace, the Christian population has been denuded, been driven out of Bethlehem, and it's 11% these days, and it's far from being the once prosperous middle-class town it once was. So this is a more local expression of first they come for the Saturday people and then they come for the Sunday people. I wonder whether the Philos project adopts this and in part of your search to find a solution. First of all, you have to dig deep and find out the root of the problem. And I would put it to you, Luke, that this is perhaps one of the roots of the problem that has to be addressed before we can find a solution.
Right. I completely agree. I mean, we have from the beginning our strategy was, we need to address the issue of Christians who are being persecuted in the region. When we started, ISIS was growing. It was very strong. When a decade ago, there was over 1 million Christians in Iraq, and now there's probably down to 125,000. And we went to Iraq, northern Iraq, in 2017. Robert Nicholson, our executive director, and I and a couple others went. And I remember standing on a bridge in northern Iraq in a town and talking to an older gentleman that remembered playing with Jewish kids when he was young in that same city. And he said to us, if only we knew then what we know now, we might have done things differently. And to your point, first the Saturday people, then the Sunday people. I mean, how many, there's maybe 700 Christians left in Gaza, and basically everybody else is gone. And that's, look at Egypt is declining, Lebanon, the Christians are declining. Iraq, like I said, went from over 1 million down to 125,000 probably now. And it's really, they're just driven out. And it's a significant problem. And we did propose over the years several solutions to that. We worked for a long time to create a safe haven in northern Iraq on the Nineveh Plain for this, basically a Christian province in Iraq. That's what we were advocating for. We've advocated for various solutions to the problem of Lebanon. Like a confederation, a federalist kind of system in Lebanon that is not existing now. We've advocated in Egypt on behalf of the Christians there, and it's a real struggle. At the same time, what is often unknown is the fact that one of the fastest growing places where Christianity is growing in the world currently is Iran, and they're not, they're not in like above ground churches. They're they're Christians who are meeting in living rooms and stuff like that in people's homes mostly. But it's a very fast growing religion in Iran, surprisingly, one of the fastest in the world. And it's very, there's a lot of the ministry is being done through satellites and TV and that kind of thing. And so I think what we're seeing now is as the indigenous Christians are driven out, there's a period of time in which there's no Christian presence, and then something happens, and people begin to find that the problem of Islam, the problem of violence within Islam specifically, is one that is driving people away from Islam, and and driving them to other faiths, to no faith, and it does change over time.
I think that the Philos project has a role in bringing leaders, even the leaders in the United States, to face reality and see the world as it really is. This is something that Israel has been forced to do, and we need allies like the Philos project to do this. I understand that you, or the Philos project, will be visiting Israel this year. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, we bring various delegations over to Israel each year. The next trip coming up will be actually in May. This is a group of young leaders who took our Pathfinder course, which is a free online course that people can take, where we kind of go into the issues of Jewish-Christian relations and the history of the Israel-Palestinian conflict. And when we say Hebraic thought, what do we mean? And the history of what we call the Church in the East. Things like that. And they have taken this program. They have attended a retreat where we talked about anti-Semitism, and those who have completed both of those, both the online courses and the retreat, get an opportunity to go on a trip to Israel. These young leaders will be learning about the history of Zionism and also Christian Zionism. And that will be kind of the focus. Each year we do kind of a focus trip for these young adults to go deeper on subjects. And then in the fall we have a trip with Catholic leaders and also a trip for journalists that's currently all on the docket, but after the High Holy Days.
What I'd like to suggest on that score, I'd be more than happy if you have room in your timetable to have some Israeli leaders in various fields come and talk with your groups to give them some perspectives that maybe they don't get from in the States. And also perhaps going forward to cooperate that when some Israeli leaders are coming through to the States, maybe the Philos project could host some of these people to give talks, lectures, PowerPoint presentations hosted by, organized by the Philos Project in the States, so that this would strengthen what I call the Judeo-Christian alliance going forward.
No, I agree. One of the things that we, from really early on when we were starting the Philos Project, and we were thinking about how to do trips, my experience was if you just focus on the old stuff, what I would call the Jesus and Sandals tour, then you're going to actually miss what is going on in modern Israel. And you're not, if you don't connect with people, then you're really missing an opportunity to go deep. And our goal is 2/3 people, 1/3 sites. That's the goal of each trip. Trying to, as much as possible, spend time getting to know actual Israelis on the ground, hear their stories, share a meal together, that kind of thing. And I think it's in the more personal interaction that you get, the better off everybody is.
That's good. If people want to know more about Philos Project, how could they find you?
Well, we have a website, obviously, philosproject.org. So Philos is spelled Philos project.org. We're also on Facebook and Instagram, and I'm told TikTok. This is what the young people tell me we're on that. I don't have TikTok, but we're there, and all social platforms. And love to have people connect. We're always looking to foster good relationships, to foster friendship. That's, like I said, Philos means friend, and that's what we're all about.
Well, I hope this initial conversation, Luke, is going to lead on to closer cooperation going forward in the future. You've left me with quite a number of ideas, positive ideas, and I hope you and I can cooperate on some future cooperations, practical cooperations and meetings going forward. So I hope this video was useful and also interesting to our viewers. Luke, thank you very much for being my guest on The View from Israel today.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a really excellent conversation.
And viewers, if you enjoyed this conversation, please share it with other people. Let other people know that the Philos Project and the importance of reaching out from Israel for their help and cooperation and active cooperation going forward. I think it's very important, perhaps more today than it has been even a couple of years ago, where I think both Jews and Christians are under attack from various sources. And I think it's quite often useful to go back and think about our Judeo-Christian commonality, if you want to call it that, of where the two faiths share certain traditional and important values that seem to be going by the way. Thank you again, Luke. Thank you, viewers, for listening. This is Barry Shaw, The View from Israel. Shalom from Israel.
אנו מכריזים בזאת